The crisp autumn breeze rustled through the golden leaves, cascading gently to the ground like nature's confetti. In the heart of the park, a little girl named Amelia, no older than 6, skipped joyfully along the pathways. Her pink coat was vibrant against a backdrop of amber and ochre hues, and her laughter echoed like a melody. By her side trotted Maximus, her oversized mastiff. To most, he appeared as nothing more than an unusually large and well-trained dog. To Amelia, he was her best friend, protector, and constant companion. Unbeknownst to the other park-goers, Maximus carried a past few could imagine. This loyal, gentle giant was a retired war dog, trained for missions most humans would never dare undertake. His scars, hidden beneath his thick coat, told tales of valor, survival, and unshakable loyalty. But Amelia didn't know Maximus' history. To her, he was simply Maxie, a heroic partner in make-believe adventures. Amelia's mother sat on a nearby bench, her eyes occasionally darting between her phone and her daughter. She trusted Maximus. The dog had proven time and again that Amelia was safer with him than anyone else. But this particular morning carried an air of foreboding, a stillness that even the wind couldn't shake. Across the park, 4 men loitered near the edge of the tree line. They were clad in leather vests, their muscular frames and sharp eyes making them look out of place amidst the serene scenery. To an untrained observer, they might seem like regular bikers, perhaps out for a ride, but their low murmurs and furtive glances toward Amelia hinted at darker intentions. Amelia, oblivious to the men's presence, knelt by a pile of leaves, tossing them into the air as Maximus watched intently. His ears perked, his body tense. Something in the atmosphere had shifted. Maximus growled softly, a low, warning rumble that only Amelia heard. "Maxie, what's wrong?" Amelia asked, placing a tiny hand on his head. The dog didn't respond, his focus locked on the men now approaching. He could smell their intentions. Malice hung around them like a thick, acrid fog. The 4 men, members of a ruthless Mexican cartel, weren't in the park by coincidence. They had been tracking Amelia's family for weeks, intending to use her as leverage against her father, a federal agent who had been a thorn in their side for years. Kidnapping Amelia was supposed to be an easy task. She was just a little girl in a public park. After all, they had encountered on Maximus. "Is this the kid?" One of the men muttered to his companion, his voice low and gravelly. "Yeah, that's her. Pink coat, big dog," replied another, tapping the side of his nose. The boss said no mistakes. "We grab her and go. Quick and clean." "Clean," scoffed a third man, who carried a coiled leash in his hands. "With that monster around, we'll need to deal with him first." The 4th man, their leader, silenced the others with a glare. "Focus. The dog's just a mutt. We've got this." The men spread out, approaching the little girl from different angles. They moved with practiced precision, like predators closing in on prey. But Maximus was no ordinary prey. Maximus backed, a loud, deep sound that reverberated through the park. Several people turned to look, but the men kept advancing, pretending to be joggers or park visitors. Amelia stood up, clutching Maximus' leash tightly. "Maxie, it's okay," she whispered, her innocence shielding her from the gravity of the situation. "They're just people." But Maximus knew better. His bark turned into a ferocious growl, teeth bared, his entire body coiled like a spring ready to unleash. The men paused, momentarily taken aback by the dog's sudden aggression. "Relax," the leader said, his tone low but firm. "It's just a dog." Maximus' growl deepened, his eyes locked on the leader. It wasn't just a dog's growl. It was a soldier's warning, a signal to retreat before the fight began. But the cartel wasn't accustomed to backing down. "Let's do this," one of the men muttered, pulling a small knife from his boot. The men moved in unison, their calculated steps sending Maximus into overdrive. He lunged forward, dragging Amelia a few feet before she let go of the leash, realizing she couldn't hold him back. Maximus charged at the man with the knife, his massive frame colliding with the attacker like a freight train. The man screamed as Maximus clamped his powerful jaws around the knife-wielding hand, disarming him with a single, bone-crushing bite. "Get the kid," the leader shouted, but their plan was already falling apart. Amelia screamed for her mother, who was now running toward them, phone in hand. The other two men hesitated, unsure whether to help their injured companion or focus on grabbing the girl. Maximus, however, gave them no time to decide. He turned on the second man, leaping into the air and knocking him flat on his back. Parkgoers began to gather, some recording the scene on their phones while others shouted for help. The chaos didn't deter the cartel members, but it did embolden Maximus. This was his battlefield now, and he wouldn't lose. The leader, now desperate, pulled out a stun gun. He aimed it at Maximus, firing a set of prongs that connected with the dog's side. Maximus yelped, his body convulsing momentarily before he ripped the prongs out with his teeth. His eyes burned with fury, and he growled louder than ever before. The leader froze. This wasn't a dog. This was a force of nature, a soldier. Maximus lunged at him, but the man ducked, narrowly avoiding the dog's jaws. Meanwhile, Amelia's mother reached her daughter, pulling her into a tight embrace. She dialed 911, her voice trembling as she reported the attack. Maximus continued his assault, his war training kicking in with ruthless efficiency. He incapacitated the third man with a strategic bite to the leg, ensuring he couldn't run. The leader, realizing the operation had failed, barked an order to retreat. Two men managed to stagger away, dragging their injured companions with them. But Maximus didn't chase. His job was to protect Amelia, and he returned to her side, panting but unyielding. The park was silent, save for the sound of sirens in the distance. People stared in awe at the dog who had single-handedly thwarted a cartel attack. Amelia knelt beside Maximus, wrapping her tiny arms around his neck. "Good boy, Maxie," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. Maximus licked her face, his tail wagging gently. Despite his fearsome display, he was still her gentle protector. The park, once filled with the sounds of laughter and the rustling of leaves, was now eerily quiet. The remaining crowd murmured in hushed voices, their gazes locked onto Maximus, the heroic mastiff standing guard beside Amelia. The distant wail of police sirens echoed through the air, signaling the approaching law enforcement. Amelia's mother knelt down, wrapping her arms protectively around her daughter. Tears welled in her eyes as she struggled to steady her voice. "Are you okay, baby? Did they hurt you?" Amelia shook her head, looking up at her mother with wide, tear-filled eyes. "Maxie saved me, Mommy. He fought them." Maximus stood tall, his muscles still tense, his eyes scanning the surroundings for any lingering threats. Years of training had conditioned him to remain alert even after an engagement. His instincts screamed at him to stay on high alert, to protect his pack. The first police cruiser screeched to a halt at the park's entrance, and officers rushed toward the scene. Witnesses pointed toward the retreating cartel members, and within moments, a chase ensued. Officer Ramirez, a seasoned cop with a sharp gaze, approached Amelia and her mother. Are you all right? Can you tell us what happened?" Amelia's mother, still trembling, explained the attack, gesturing toward Maximus. "If it wasn't for him, they would have taken my daughter. He's a retired war dog. He protected us." Ramirez knelt down beside Maximus, eyeing the massive dog with newfound respect. "You've got yourself a real hero here, little lady." He patted Maximus gently, and the dog, sensing no threat, allowed it. The officers gathered statements from the bystanders, while a few took photos and video footage from eyewitnesses. Despite the relief of the cartel's retreat, a lingering tension hung in the air. The attackers had been relentless, and it was only a matter of time before they tried again. Maximus let out a low growl, as if sensing that this fight was far from over. That evening, Amelia sat curled up on the couch with Maximus lying protectively beside her. The soft glow of the television illuminated their faces, but neither of them was paying much attention. Her mother sat across from them, scrolling through her phone, trying to find out more about the men who had attacked them. Amelia traced her fingers over Maximus' scars, her innocent curiosity finally giving way to deeper questions. "Mommy, what happened to Maxie before we got him?" Her mother sighed, brushing a strand of hair behind Amelia's ear. "Sweetheart, Maximus used to be a war dog. He worked with soldiers to protect people in dangerous places. He's very brave." Amelia's eyes widened. "Did he fight bad guys before?" "Yes, honey. He's fought some very bad people. And today, he protected you just like he used to protect his soldiers." The thought weighed heavily on the little girl's mind. She hugged Maximus tightly, whispering, "Thank you for keeping me safe, Maxie." Maximus licked her cheek, his tail wagging slightly. Though retired, his purpose had not changed: protect his family at all costs. Her mother glanced at a thick folder on the table, Maximus' service records. It detailed missions, locations, and commendations earned during his time in the military. Flipping through the pages, she realized just how much this dog had endured. Deep down, she knew the cartel would come again, and when they did, Maximus would be ready. In a dimly lit warehouse on the outskirts of town, the surviving cartel members regrouped. Their leader, Hector El Lobo Mendoza, paced back and forth, seething with rage. "You mean to tell me," he growled, slamming his fist onto the table, "that a little girl's dog took down 3 of my best men?" The injured cartel member winced, holding his bandaged arm. "Boss, it's not just any dog. That thing's a trained killer. Military grade." El Lobo narrowed his eyes. "Then we take it out first. Next time, we go in prepared. No mistakes. No witnesses." He motioned to a man in the shadows. "Get me everything on that family. Their schedule, their habits, and that dog's weaknesses." We're not done yet. As the cartel plotted their next move, back at Amelia's home, Maximus sensed something looming on the horizon. He paced the house, sniffing at doors and windows, his instincts sharper than ever. Amelia's mother locked the doors and windows, feeling an unshakable sense of unease. "We need to be ready." Maximus, ever the warrior, stood by the door, ready to face whatever came next. The following morning, Amelia's father, Agent Daniel Carter, arrived home from his latest assignment. His sharp eyes took in his wife's worried expression and the way Maximus remained on high alert. "I heard what happened," he said grimly, placing a comforting hand on Amelia's shoulder. "They won't stop until they get what they want. But they don't know who they are messing with." Maximus sat beside him, as if understanding every word. Daniel had trained with war dogs before, and he knew Maximus' instincts were never wrong. "We'll need to increase security," Daniel said, checking the perimeter of the house. "Motion sensors, cameras, and I'll call in a few favors." That afternoon, Daniel worked tirelessly, reinforcing the house. Maximus followed closely, ever the vigilant guardian. Amelia, despite the fear in the air, remained cheerful, believing in Maximus' strength. "Daddy, Max is the strongest dog ever. He won't let the bad guys get us." Daniel smiled but kept his gun within arm's reach. That night, under the cover of darkness, the cartel made their move. Silent footsteps crept toward the house, figures blending into the night. But they underestimated Maximus. Before the first intruder could reach the door, Maximus let out an earth-shattering bark that rattled the windows. Daniel was on his feet in seconds, gun in hand. "Stay with Mommy," he ordered Amelia, positioning himself at the door. Maximus launched himself at the first intruder, knocking him flat. A shot rang out, but the bullet missed as Daniel returned fire. Amelia clung to her mother as sirens wailed in the distance, their earlier emergency call proving invaluable. The cartel, realizing they had walked into a trap, retreated once more. Maximus stood tall, victorious once again. The war wasn't over, but with Maximus by their side, They had hope. Days passed since the night raid, but the tension in the air remained thick. Amelia's family had fortified their home, and Maximus never left her side. He had become more vigilant, his ears twitching at the slightest sound. Daniel sat at the kitchen table, reviewing surveillance footage from the security cameras he had installed. "They are still out there," he muttered, his fingers tapping the table in frustration. Amelia, sitting on the couch with Maximus, hugged him tightly. "Maxie will keep us safe, Daddy," she said confidently. The innocent trust in her voice filled Daniel's heart with a renewed sense of purpose. He knew he had to end this once and for all. Meanwhile, El Lobo and his men were planning their next move. They had studied Maximus's strengths and weaknesses, devising a sinister plan to neutralize him. This time, they would come prepared with tranquilizers and a diversion that no amount of training could anticipate. As night fell, Amelia's mother tucked her into bed while Maximus lay at the foot, his eyes locked on the window. Outside, the darkness concealed more than just shadows. It held danger waiting to strike. It was past midnight when the first signs of intrusion began. A subtle rustling outside the fence made Maximus' ears perk up. He growled low, his body tense like a coiled spring. Daniel, watching the security feed, noticed movement. "They are here," he whispered, reaching for his weapon. He signaled to his wife to take Amelia to the panic room. The cartel had learned from their previous mistakes. This time, they released a smoke canister near the back of the house, obscuring the cameras and creating chaos. Maximus barked furiously, sprinting towards the back door. In the confusion, a cartel member snuck in through a side window. He tiptoed through the hallway, making his way toward Amelia's room. But Maximus was faster. He lunged, knocking the man to the ground with a force that shattered the silence. Daniel rushed in, gun raised. "Good boy, Max," he called out, kicking the weapon away from the intruder's grasp. He secured the man just as more cartel members attempted to break in from the front. Maximus, unfazed, raced back to the living room, ready for the next confrontation. Outside, El Lobo watched from a distance, his cold eyes calculating every move. He signaled his men to fall back temporarily, knowing they had underestimated Maximus once again. Inside, Daniel secured the doors, his heart pounding. "We can't keep playing defense," he said to his wife. "We need to end this." Maximus stood at the door, his chest rising and falling rapidly. He was ready for another fight. But Daniel knew the cartel wouldn't stop until they had what they came for. Amelia, peeking from behind her mother, whispered, "Can't we just run away, Daddy?" Daniel knelt beside her, placing a hand on Maximus. "No, sweetheart. We fight back." He glanced at his phone and dialed an old military contact, calling in reinforcements. El Lobo, watching from his vantage point, smirked. "We'll be back. And next time, we won't fail." Just before dawn, the cartel launched their most aggressive assault. Gunshots rang out, shattering the early morning peace. Daniel returned fire from behind cover, while Maximus leaped into action. Smoke filled the house, but Maximus navigated through it with precision. He took down an attacker trying to breach the back door, his growls echoing through the halls. The military reinforcements arrived just in time, surrounding the property and engaging the cartel members in a fierce battle. El Lobo, realizing he had lost the upper hand, attempted to escape, but Maximus had other plans. The war dog chased him down, tackling him with such force that the cartel leader crashed to the ground. Maximus stood over him, teeth bared, until Daniel arrived to arrest him. With El Lobo in custody and the remaining cartel members subdued, peace finally returned to Amelia's home. In the days that followed, life slowly returned to normal. The town hailed Maximus as a hero, and Amelia never let him out of her sight. "You're the best dog ever, Maxie," she cheered, hugging him tightly. Daniel, proud of his family and their resilience, knelt beside Maximus. "I owe you everything, buddy. We all do." Amelia's mother smiled. "We should get him a medal." But Maximus didn't need medals. He was content with his family safe and sound. As the sun set on their home, Amelia looked at Maximus. "Do you think more bad guys will come?" Daniel ruffled her hair. "Maybe, but with Maximus here, we'll always be ready." If you loved this thrilling story, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more action-packed tales. What would you do if you had a heroic dog like Maximus? Let us know in the comments below.